Hello and welcome to Sage and Stone Homestead. If you have not met me yet, my name is Heather. We are growing in southwestern Kentucky, zone 7A, and it's springtime, which means that it's a little bit windy. I do have the wind muff on my camera, but it can only do so much, so I apologize for that. But we are getting some rain later, and we are also nearing our last frost. We may have already had it. The temperature is going to be kind of low in the morning, but that won't hurt the potatoes because they will still be underground. So I think it's perfect time to get the potatoes planted. I do have, I believe, 9 different types of potatoes that we're going to be growing in these grow bags. So you can see I still have a few things. This is just some lettuces growing in here. This lettuce is bolting, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that out. And then after we plant the potatoes, I am going to start to run the drip irrigation through the rest of this planting space. As far as types of potatoes, this is what I have going on. These are all from Wood Prairie Family Farm. So I've got Purple Viking, All Blue, Adirondack Red, Huckleberry Gold, Adirondack Blue, Yukon Gold, Rosefin Apple, which is a fingerling type, and then the other fingerling type that I have called Banana. Now all of these seed potatoes have started to chit, which means they're putting on their greens on the top of the potato. I recently learned that potatoes have a top and a bottom. I actually had no idea about that. This here, where the greens are growing out of, is the top, and we'll be planting them in the grow bag in this direction. The bottom, and this potato doesn't show it super clearly, so maybe I'll grab another one where it's a little bit more obvious, but there's basically a potato belly button, as I've heard it called, on the bottom of the potato. There, this one shows it a little bit better. Can you see that little dry bit? Apparently this is where it was attached to its parent plant. We want to plant it this way. Pretty sure I've always just kind of thrown the potatoes in the bed or the bag when I've grown them in the past. It's been several years since I've grown potatoes, and I'm not some potato expert, so definitely take what I do with a grain of salt, do more research, figure out what works best for you. I don't actually know if these are determinate or indeterminate potato types. And that is a thing. We hear a lot about determinate and indeterminate when it comes to things like tomatoes, who are also in the nightshade family. And the same is true for potatoes. I think most of them are indeterminate, but I'm not sure which ones these are. I'm just gonna plant them all at the same depth. Not super deep, but we should get a decent harvest anyway. My hope is to get at least a pound of potato out of each seed potato. So we'll see. And thank you to our channel member Jessica that sent me her extra potatoes. This is more Purple Viking and then like a red variety. As you can see, I have grown in these grow bags before, and I have mulched quite heavily with a hardwood bark mulch. I do want to pull this mulch out. I'm going to put it to the side. I will put this back on top. But because I've already grown in this bag, that means that I am going to need to amend the soil. What amending means is just feeding the soil. We want to feed the soil because that in turn is going to feed our plant, so we can get a larger plant that has the nutrition in order to support growing tubers. These are 15-gallon grow bags. And when you grow in containers, whether it be raised beds or grow bags like this or pots, you do want to be mindful that you need to fertilize more often throughout the growing season. Potatoes, they take a relatively long time. I guess it depends on when you'd like to harvest them. If you harvest them a little sooner, they're smaller and they're called new potatoes. But I am going to be fertilizing a little bit with some Trifecta Plus. This isn't exactly balanced, but this has worked well for us in the past. I think a general rule of thumb is 1 seed potato per 5 gallons of soil. So this is a 15-gallon grow bag. I'm going to put 3 potatoes in each. Remember, greens up, bottom down. We want them at least 6 inches apart. So I'll just cover it with a little bit more mulch. I don't really want more than about 4 inches of material on top of the potatoes. Those little sprouts on the eyes are only gonna have so much energy before they really need to see the sunlight. So I'm gonna err on the side of putting a little bit less mulch on top. And as you can see, I've got space to add more later. A lot of people, what they'll do with their indeterminate tomato varieties is plant them lower, cover them, and once they sprout and come up above the soil, they will put some more mulch on top and then let them sprout again and put some more on top. And in theory, you'll get potatoes along that whole column that grows. That only works with the indeterminate types. And again, I don't really know what I have going on here. And I just set this plant tag in here, kind of facing the east, but also a little bit southeast. A lot of people will complain that their plant tags fade over the course of the growing season. Here's a tip from me. Put your plant tags facing north. They shouldn't see a whole lot of sunlight that way, and your markings should stay a lot longer. I had to hurry up and get those planted because that weather is moving in faster than they said. But all the bags are full now and ready to get rained on. Okay, so we got a good amount of rain yesterday. It actually lasted longer than was expected. We so needed a good drench, but I got rained out. So it is the next day and we're gonna install the drip irrigation on the lane today. Now, I have drip irrigation already set up here in the greenhouse. You can probably see it laying on top of the beds around me. Some people like to bury their drip irrigation. I don't like to do that because when I turn my drip irrigation on, I like to scan around to make sure that it is working, because sometimes the little emitters can clog up, and if they're clogged up, they're not going to be putting out water, and it doesn't take very long for that to be bad news for your plants. So I get all of my drip irrigation tubing and things from Grower Solution. They're a small company out of Tennessee. I'm not sponsored or anything. They just happen to be close by and I can get stuff really fast in the mail. So I might not know the technical names for a lot of these parts, but I will put them down below. This piece here is what is going to essentially act as the bridge between our garden hose and the drip line tubing. This is the drip line tubing that I use. It's called a mini pep line, and it has a little drip emitter every 6 inches. I have also used drip tape, and I like that. It's just a little bit more fussy to deal with, and I kind of like how this looks a little bit better, but it does work just as well. It does come in 100-foot lengths. I ordered 5 of these for the lane and they only sent 1. So I'm not able to complete what I'm doing today, but you're gonna get the gist. So what our goal is to get the water from the garden hose to these emitters and then the water to our plants. And this is kind of the bridge for that. So you can see I've already got some of little connectors stuck in here because this is the same line that I had on the lane last year, but I disassembled it because I left it outside all winter and a spider had built the nest on the inside, and so I cleaned this out with the brush. You don't want anything getting in your lines if you can help it. It actually is really helpful if you can put a filter on your hose to help filter out anything coming in from underground, especially if you've got freeze-free hydrants and things. But yeah, I got this all cleaned up, and without these little barbs, just pretend those aren't there. This is what you start with. Obviously, this isn't going to connect to our garden hose very well the way that it is. So we've got this little adapter here, which connects onto the hose. You can see it's got a washer here. This is where the male end of the hose comes in, and then we've got this end that goes into the pipe. It's pretty cool how this works and connects. You literally just turn it and it snugs down onto this pipe. So I'm just going to take this tapered end, put it in here, and then this screws down over top and secures it in. There we go. So now we can connect our hose to this pipe. This end is open, and the goal is that we'll close this off so that we can route the water to our mini pep line, which will be attached right here. So we need to crimp this end off, and it's just as simple as bending the end just like a regular garden hose, and you could put like a zip tie or something around to hold it, but what I have here is this cute little figure 8 that you can get. I'm just gonna put one end through here, crimp it down, and then it just secures like that, and that holds it really well. So you can see I do have a little barbed connector already attached to our mainline hose. This here is what we're going to connect our mini pep line hose to. I know one side is already in, but it looks just like this on the other side. But all I did was take a sharp tool and pierce that in here and snap the little connector in, and now we're ready to get the drip line in. Okay, so I've got my potato bags over here, and then I've got the rest of the growing space over here. I think what I'm going to do eventually is run a couple different lines out to the grow bags. For today, I'm just going to be taking our pep line out onto the lane. This bag here is full of garden staples. These guys are one of my best friends in the garden, and they're going to help keep our drip line in place. So I freed up my tubing, and all I need to do is put this end straight onto that barbed connector. And it is a little bit snug, but you want it to be so it doesn't pop off. Goodness. There we go, that's what it looks like. Mainline hose connector, pep line with the pep line connector. And we're just gonna roll it out. You can really roll this out in whatever pattern you feel like is going to suit your space best. Again, there's one emitter every 6 inches, and in general, the water is going to soak in by about a 6-inch diameter at each emitter. This does depend on your soil composition, but just think about that when it comes to what you're trying to water and how thoroughly you're trying to soak the bed. In my greenhouse, I actually snake the pep line throughout the bed. In the grow bags, I like to run loops like this, and I think I'm actually going to run loops like this along the lane. It's going to give me a nice thorough soaking. Gotten to the point where I need to connect another line of tubing. I have a lot of it here. This isn't going to be enough to complete the project today, but I can show you how to connect pep line to pep line. So we're just going to use one of these little double barbed sections like we connected the pep line to the main line tubing. I'm just going to place one end on this side. There's spiderweb in that. Can you see it? That won't do. What I did was just cut that section off with the emitter that was going to come next. There's probably quite a lot of gunk going on in here. This emitter stopped anything from going down further up the tube. So this is clean. There we go. Now it's connected. Okay, so we've reached the end of the tubing that I have for today. And much like with the main line, you could just crimp this off and find a way to close it. I happen to have a little plug that fits perfectly into here, so I am going to use it. There. And now what I'd like to do is test the system. One thing that I do not know is how long is too long with this mini pep line tube. Like, at what point will the water pressure kind of give up and not push out water through the emitters? Speaking of water pressure though, with these kinds of systems, if you have a very high water pressure where you live, you might need to tone it down a little, because a lot of pressure trying to get into this little tiny tube could end up blowing it out. And so you can find these little pressure regulators online. They sell them at Grower Solution as well. This is 15 psi, which is generally what's recommended for these. Definitely looks like I need a washer over here, but I can take care of that later. Slowly but surely, we're getting drips all the way down the line, but I'm kind of wondering if I should experiment with taking that pressure regulator off, because with each emitter, that's less and less pressure in the lines, and it's less and less pressure to push the water further up. You've got a little drip there, but it's pretty weak. Well, it didn't explode, but it's dripping out quite fast on this end. Getting a little bit of water further up the line, but it's moving a lot slower. And so I wondered about this, and I do think that I know the solution. What I've done in my greenhouse is I have run a line of mainline tubing up each row, and I have connected this PEP line into the tubing at each bed, so each bed has a tap straight into that main line where there's a lot of pressure and a lot of water coming. I'm just asking this little skinny tube to do a whole lot, and so I may need to pivot, because yeah, we're not getting a lot down here. And we're getting a whole lot over here. So knowing that, I think that that's all that I can do on this project today. I do have to place an order for a little bit more mainline tubing, but you get the vision. And hopefully my troubleshooting out here has taught you guys something. It's taught me a lot. Anywho, I am pretty sure we got our last frost. We didn't frost at all this morning, so I'm thinking it happened a few days ago. So the growing season has officially begun.